Currently, Angular is one of the most popular web application frameworks, and today we're going to have a look at how to install the Angular CLI and get started with your first Angular project. So let's get started. Good afternoon everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So we're starting from the Angular website because we're going to assume that you have npm installed. So if you don't have that installed, then go work that out. It's fairly simple. If you're on Arch, then I'm pretty sure you can just get it from the standard repos, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so if you're on Ubuntu or anything like that, you can probably get it from those repos as well. So back to the Angular website. So from here, to create your first project, you could set up Webpack and all that by yourself, but that is way too difficult for pretty much everybody. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go to the Resources tab and come down here to Angular CLI. And from here it gives you basic instructions for how to actually install it. So we're going to use npm, go npm install -g at Angular/CLI, I believe. Yes. Okay, so what's going to happen here, I know what's going to happen, this isn't a surprise for me. So if we just let this install for a second, we're going to get this error message. So what this is saying, I don't think something similar will happen on Windows. If it does, you can just run your terminal or command prompt or PowerShell as administrator. But if you're on a Linux distro, basically we're just going to run npm with the as a sudo user, or with the sudo command. So if we run that same command again, but this time with sudo. So I've already got the Angular CLI installed, so this is going to try to install it, but instead it's just going to update it, so I'm going to skip ahead to when that's done. Okay, actually, no point even skipping ahead, that finished way quicker than I thought it would. So yeah, now we have the Angular CLI set up. So from here, we're going to go to where I want to create my new project. So I like having all of my projects in my repos folder just because it makes it easier to write some scripts to handle stuff like that. I'll talk about that in another video. But in this folder, we're going to, if we run ng, it'll basically bring up the help menu. So as we can see from here, there's a bunch of different things you can do. And if we go back to the Angular website, we can see that we can run ng new, which is right here. Creates a new workspace and initial Angular app. So if we run ng new with, give it whatever name you feel like. So say, let's just call it new app. Hopefully you're much more creative than I am. So would I like to use Angular routing? You can add routing in later if you don't want it, but or if you don't want it now, but you're almost certainly going to have, even if you're using a single page application, you're just going to need routing anyway to route between the different components on that page, so you might as well just include it now. And you can also decide which style sheet you want to use. I'll be going over in a separate video how to actually change this later on if you start with, say, CSS for example, and then later you want to use Sass or SCSS or less or stylus. But for now we're just going to choose CSS, and it'll create some basic stuff. It created git ignore for us, which is nice because there's some files we don't need in here, like you don't want to be committing all of your node modules for example, and there's some other metadata stuff that you don't really need to be committing. But this will take a little bit to finish, so I'll cut back to when this is done. Okay, so now that that's done, basically there's one thing I didn't mention. So if we run the ng command again, all of the commands here, you don't actually have to write, say, new or lint or generate. They all have shortcut aliases, which is nice because I don't really feel like writing generate every time I want to make a new class. It's much easier just to have those aliases, so it's nice that those are included. It's not a super important point, but it's nice to know that those are there. So now that we have our application, we can run this, or ls I guess, and we can see that we have our new app here. So if we cd into our new app, and it's created all of these files for us. So let's say we want to check out that git ignore for example. So there's a lot of stuff in here that we don't really need. It will take out some IDE stuff for you. If you use any of those IDEs, it takes out some stuff that VS Code will generate. And as I said, there's some other stuff, like other metadata stuff in here that you don't really need, your node modules, if you're on a Mac, Macs like to create these DS store files that I have no idea what they do, but it likes to create lots of them. And basically, the git ignore just handles that all for you, because you're going to add it anyway, so you might as well just let Angular CLI generate it all for you. So from here, what we want to do now is we can run the app, because it basically just generates a skeleton app for you just so you can see what it looks like. So if we run ngserve, that will take a moment to start up. It's going to have to compile everything. Every time you run ngserve, it's going to have to recompile everything, but once it's running, it'll automatically update stuff as it changes, so you don't have to worry about compiling every time, because it does take quite a bit of time to actually handle. So as we can see from here, it's now running on localhost 4200. So if we come in here, and we can change this to 4200. The other one I had there was for another project I was doing with React. But as we can see, now this new app is running. It's actually changed a little bit since I generated my first project, which is nice. Actually looks kind of cool now, but that's not too important. If you can hear in the background, my housemates are just running the taps and the plumbing here is really loud. But anyway, so I think that's pretty much everything for this video. If you like this video, remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon below if you want to see more from my channel. If you think your friends will like this video, then yeah, then recommend it to them as well. If you actually learnt something from this, then cool. If you didn't and you thought that me going over some really basic stuff was an absolute waste of time, tell me that in the comments below. Or if you enjoyed it, tell me that as well. And I guess up here, that side, yeah, there will be some random video that I feel like putting up there as another suggestion for you guys to go watch. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.